How to tell a good story. You can learn it by applying basic storytelling principles and techniques. Whenever you present in public, it's important to know how to tell a good story. Ben Shapiro is known as a conservative speaker, but he's also a great storyteller. I try to apply the same principles when I create a video. It's not always easy though. Ben Shapiro was telling a story in Buffalo, and as he goes and as we have a look at it, I'm gonna stop it and tell you exactly what happens. Before we start, if you're new to storytelling, you may want to check out this video right here where I explain the basic techniques of storytelling. It's a must-see. I explain what the angel's cocktail is, what a story arc is, and what a universal theme is. Topics we will speak about in this example video as well.
Well, it's amazing to be here at University at Buffalo. When I was growing up, I actually always had a soft spot for the Buffalo Bills. I used to watch Jim Kelly play.
First, you give context. Where are we? We're in Buffalo. Let's connect with the audience. Let's all feel good. And he does that by talking about something that most people have in common, that is sports and the town he's in. So that's how he connects with the audience.
And when my wife and I were dating, we actually decided to take a trip around Christmas time to Niagara Falls.
This is the exposition. All of these things trigger emotions and are things that the audience can somehow relate to. It's Christmas time, they're dating, they're going to a romantic trip, to a romantic place. What also happens here when he gives you those details is there is some dopamine released, which there is a suspense. What happened at Niagara Falls? What happened to those new weds? And also there is a connection because we all can relate. And that's oxytocin. We can all relate to that young couple traveling to the Niagara Falls.
Which is just something Californians think is a good idea.
And then he adds the first punchline, which releases endorphin. He says, yeah, that's something Californians think it's a good idea. Now, some will laugh because they associate something with that, and others will actually wonder, yeah, why is it wrong to think that? Why is it not a good idea to travel in winter to the Niagara Falls? So that adds to the story.
So that's the last time I was in Buffalo. That was 11 years ago, and it was not good.
Another joke. That means more endorphin, more feel-good in the audience, and also dopamine. More people now wonder why it was not good.
And I'll say that. We had just been engaged, and we did a trip where we went to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C.
So we're in that rising action phase of the story arc. Now he gives more context. They're just engaged. Where did they come from? To create more connection with the audience and give more of a full picture where they're at.
And then we decided we would go to Niagara Falls for New Year's, not realizing, of course, that there's this thing called snow and cold. And
we're still in the rising action, remember? And more problems occur in rising action to create more dopamine within the audience. More suspense. The snow and cold was unexpected, so we start to wonder, wow, what happened? This really starts off the rising action of the story arc. Elements of the rising action typically are what way will the character choose when problems occur.
So we got up here, there was no food, because I keep kosher. We keep kosher, so all we had was literally for 24 hours a bag of bagel chips.
No food! There's more trouble. But there's also a first mini success. They have bagel chips.
And I remember that we went to a local Holiday Inn because we couldn't afford anything else. And we stopped at the front desk and we said, we need a limo we need some sort of car. We just need a car to get to Niagara Falls.
Let's add a little bit more trouble. They have no money. And they need a driver to get them to Niagara Falls.
And of course, this being a relatively cheap hotel, the person behind the desk had some sort of kickback arrangement with some guy. And so us being idiots, we were like, sure, that guy. So the guy pulls up, and he's driving about a 1979 Cadillac limousine.
Now, even more trouble with that driver. They're approaching the catastrophe, the big climax of the story.
With a red velvet interior. And we trepidatiously get in the back of the limo, and we have our bag, clutching our bag of bagel chips like the poor urchins that we were.
Remember the bagel chips? The partial solution they had on the way? They thought that would save them?
And the limo driver starts talking to us. He tells us that he's been married 6 times. And he explains that he is hungry and reaches back into our bag of bagel chips.
Now the catastrophe is complete. The driver reaches into the bagel chip. It's their only meal and he's eating their only meal. It's a catastrophe. This is the climax of the story.
And proceeds to start noshing on our only food. And then decides he's going to give marital advice to my wife. And I figured, okay, he's married 6 times, he must know something.
And then also to add to this guy has been married 6 times and gives them marriage advice. This caused another laugh, and it's really a good example of story punchline, where he first says, well, this guy giving us marriage advice, that's the context, that's the setup, and then the punchline, he's been divorced 6 times.
And the only piece of advice that I actually remember was him just saying over and over and over, keep the spice alive. And her looking at me like, I want to die.
Now, when the story has reached the climax, we really wonder how will they react to the story, because that really defines the transformation that the character goes through. The choice they take here is they laugh at the situation, which of course makes the situation more easy on them.
The good news is we've been married for 10 years. The bad news is we haven't been back to Buffalo since. But this is a lot better. This is a lot better. So I really appreciate you guys coming out.
And then this is a very smart move and a very humorous resolution. We've been married since then, but never been back to Buffalo. This is a very smart resolution of the story. First of all, it's a joke. It makes people laugh. It makes them relax. And then also it closes the loop. It's a closed loop now because the story started in Buffalo and it ends with Buffalo. All the suspense is resolved with that laugh, and you can see the transformation that happened within that couple. They made an adventure and they survived by laughing at the problems they had, and they're still together. And have a closer look. We don't really know what happens afterwards because the story basically ends at the climax and he's just laughing about that situation. We don't really know what happened afterwards. Have they been at the Niagara Falls? Did they find something to eat? We don't know. But still, the story feels resolved for us. We always want to know how the character changes during the story because that gives us very precious information. Like here he says, I've not been back to Buffalo, but I've been married since. So it hasn't changed his marriage. Eventually it made it even stronger. That is also a hint at the universal theme, the thing you don't mention, but we all understand by listening to the story. That's the thing under the thing in the story. Here, the universal could be things like, it's good to take hardship with humor. Or another one, traveling is fun. You experience great adventures. You can make it together and afterwards it's funny. You can have a laugh at it. That's something we can all relate to. Remember, don't voice it. Everybody will understand without voicing the universal theme. But you have to think about it before you tell the story because it gives the tone of the story. It tells you where to put the focus on in the story. And the universal theme may not even be the same for everybody listening to the story. We may draw different conclusions from the story. Anyway, this is an excellent example of a story arc with exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and also a great example of how those emotions are created within the audience in a very quick example. I hope you like this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to Story Spotlight for more amazing stories. See you in the next one.